We've all interacted with media at some point in our lives. Therefore, media has impacted or influenced us all in some way. So, wouldn't it make sense that we are all looking for someone who's like us within the characters we see? Hi, I'm Ryan Johnson. I am a transgender male, and I have been studying how television currently represents the LGBT community. To do this, I studied 4 shows: Glee, Degrassi, The Next Generation, Will and Grace, and Modern Family. You may notice that these are all different styles of show and are for different demographics, but there's method to this. It's to see how television represents people differently to each group. So, without further ado, let's get into it with our first show. Glee! Glee is possibly one of the most popular shows on this list. Within a survey I conducted, I learned that Glee was a lot of people's first introduction to the LGBT community, with characters like Kurt, Santana, and Brittany. So, how did it do? Well, my roommate put it best in saying that this show is full of stereotypes, not even just for gay characters. Kurt exemplifies the feminine gay man who is in love with theater. The very first thing you see of him within the episode that we watched, which is Preggers, season 1, episode 4, is him in a dressed up in a sparkly leotard and heels, dancing to single ladies. And even as he tries out for sports, he still needs single ladies to play to be able to kick the ball through the field goal. Couldn't remember the word there for a second. And then later on, as we move on to the next episode, which is in season 2, he meets his boyfriend, who turns out to be more of the straight gay, which is where you're not as openly gay, but you're still gay. It's very whimsical when they first hold hands and run through the hallway. This is also an example of a harmful stereotype within where we see a bully who is a closeted gay male who is so ashamed of himself he is taking it out on the out gay male. Because by this point, Kurt is out to everyone. And he's getting pushed into a locker by a fellow gay man. I will very quickly. Yeah, so it wasn't really well handled. That's not really realistically portraying how bullying happens. More realistically is when the Glee Club was making fun of Kurt for how flamboyant and feminine he is, than it is for someone who is also gay to take out the frustrations on a fellow gay man. But yeah, moving on. Next up is... That's right, Degrassi, The Next Generation. Degrassi is a show that ran on Teen Nick. It was known for its diversity, and it was my first introduction to a transgender character. So Adam did have a big influence on me with my coming to find out what my identity was. When I was explaining to a friend, all I had to say was, "You remember Adam from Degrassi?" So yeah, that did have a big impact. So yeah, as this is my area of expertise, how did it go? It wasn't perfect, but you can't really expect representation to be perfect right now, especially as this came out in the early 2010s, and, we're not where we are now, where we were then. The very first problem I see is that the name of the episode is My Body is a Cage. For some people, this might be a true feeling with the dysphoria of being, not having the parts and bits you want, but I personally think of it more, I don't know, I don't think of myself as a cage. So this is Adam's coming out episode. I've been focusing mainly on how they come out. So of course you have the mother who's not accepting. You have the use of the birth name plenty of times as like a, oops, I slipped up. And it's a little realistic there. One very realistic thing is that the trans male does wear layers. That is something that we definitely do. I'm wearing layers right now. It's to help conceal, what you don't want people to see. One problem I did have was, or 2 problems really, was the unsafe binding methods that Adam uses. He uses ace bandages to bind up here. And the problem with ace bandages is they do not expand with you as you breathe. And they can cause fluids to fill up in your lungs. You need to use a safer binder, and even then, it can cause problems for the mammary glands. That's an entirely different story. That's getting more into, like, here's transgender safety. Adam is once again a character that is bullied once he is outed. He does not come out on his own accord. He is outed by a fellow student who touched him in the chest and then was like, "You're too small for man boobs." So yeah, he got thrown through a glass door for, like, entering the men's bathroom, which I guess part of that is realistic, not the being thrown through a glass door. That's never happened to me. But it is scary going into the bathroom of your choice because you don't know who's waiting on the other side. You don't know if when you enter, they'll be like, "Huh, you want to be treated like a boy? I'm going to punch you in the face." Or, "Oh, you're a man. Oh, I'm going to spray you in the face with pepper spray," you know? So you just never know. It's always a scary thing, and you typically have a friend go in with you. I guess that's another kind of semi-unrealistic thing. But then again, Adam was so good at passing as a cisgender male that he hadn't had the need for having a cis man go in with him to the bathroom. Quick little terminology thing for you. Cisgender means someone who identifies as their birth gender. So I guess that's all I'm going to say about it. Oh, the second problem. I almost skipped it. In the second part of this episode, because this was a two-parter, so those were my 2 episodes, was that Adam introduced a way for transgender males to harm themselves. He, whenever he was presenting as female, because he had to do that for a family member, he would take out a hair clip that he had, burn the metal piece, and then place it against his skin to burn himself, which is a big problem. I followed suit as a teenager, or I almost did. I wanted to, did not have a lighter. So that was good for me. I'm scared other people may have done it. Whenever you're presenting self-harm, you do have to keep in mind not to show exactly how it's done, or else someone will follow suit and mimic it. That's another story altogether. Lastly, we watched the clip of Adam's death because we realized we watched the same exact, I say we, because my roommate and I did watch these together. We watched the clip of Adam's death, and I will show that right. I cried. It's always hard when someone that you always looked up to and identified with passes away, and the sad reality is that with most LGBT characters in media, they've been killed off, or they face a tragedy, and you have no control over it. But moving on to happier thoughts, we have... That's right, Will and Grace. Will and Grace was a show that ran from the late 90s to the early mid-2000s, and it is recently making a comeback, possibly because this is the right time to do it. More people are accepting. Of course you gotta do it with your gay lawyer. He's fun. This show is hailed as wonderful representation and known for changing the way television represents my community. It was my first time watching the series, so does this hold true? Yes. Will and Grace had my shortest list of stereotypes, and although it does still contain stereotypes, they're realistically handled, because of course you will always meet someone who is a bit flamboyant. You'll meet someone who is more of the straight man, but as the seasons progressed, when we got to season 8, they were more accepting of themselves. Even the coming out was handled realistically, even though the mother did not really fully accept it when Jack came out to her. She was ready to move forward and understand. Sometimes that does not happen. Sometimes you are disowned on the spot, or the parent leaves the room and never talks to you again. That is the scary part of coming out, so that's why I can understand characters crying while they're coming out. But 2 episodes we watched were Homo for the Holidays and A Little Holiday Queer, which I think is pretty funny because they're both puns, and I am a big fan of puns. This is getting a little off topic, but I do love puns. This was a comedy, unlike the last 2, although Glee can be considered a comedy, though it's more of like a teen drama with music. This is considered definitely a comedy sitcom. So there were a lot of jokes, and one of the funniest jokes that were there was wrong way, the closet's back there, when Jack was trying to leave, and Will made the joke. And so they're both two gay men, and this is a very realistic depiction of how LGBT individuals interact with each other. I know my roommate and I make jokes like that all the time. So the final show I watched was Modern Family. Another comedy, and this is geared towards everyone. So Modern Family was a show I used to watch with my dad, and it contains a gay married couple. However, there wasn't really an uproar about the show tearing apart traditional family values, and it's already on its, I want to say 8th season? 9th? It's up there. So, is this because the couple is toned down and not obviously together? No. So, Modern Family, they handle a couple realistically. Instead of a coming out episode, I did the episode where they adopt a daughter. Mitch was afraid of telling his family that they adopted a daughter because his dad is still a little bit judgmental about the fact that they are married. So he was like, oh, he's going to be like, oh, the baby needs a mother. Which he does say that, but Jay is very quick to accept it. So it's not blown out of proportion when they bring home a baby and it's like, oh, how could you? And defying a stereotype is there's no clear man and woman within the homosexual relationship. That'd be like asking who's the fork, who's the knife. We don't really ask that. So the stereotype it does really perpetrate is that all gay people are over the top. This includes Mitch's speech to the airplane. This includes Cam freaking out that he doesn't get to perform at the 10-year anniversary, which comes in the next episode. And honestly, there's no tragedy. The fate is that the family does constantly accept Cam and Mitch, even if Mitch is worried, no matter what they do. And they are still a happy couple, even if they do argue, and they are treated just the same as a straight married couple, which is the goal of all homosexual characters. And it's the same with transgender characters, to be treated just like our straight counterparts. So, to wrap this up, what I've learned from these past representations I can use to help me moving forward to create new representations. With these, I can see what people want, I can see what I want, I can see where mistakes were made, and I can see where things need to be kept and pushed forward. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day or evening, wherever you are.